and welcome back to my channel. This week we're going to be starting a new costume project, and that is Lucy Greybeard's Lucy Greybeard? Lucy Greybeard? Lucy Grey's rainbow dress from the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the new Hunger Bird movie. I watched this a couple of weeks ago when it came out, and just like everybody else, I absolutely fell in love with, well, not only her dress, but the entire film. Like, I'm a huge Hunger Games fan, as you may know from previous costumes I have made, and this particular film blows it out of the park. It is infinitely better. Love the characters in this one so much more. Just such a good movie. So yeah, I am going to make Lucy Grey's dress from it. So this will be broken up into 3 parts. I'm going to start with the corset layer, then I'll do the shirt and the bloomers that she wears underneath the skirt, and then finally I'll finish it off with the skirt. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. I'm going to dive down deep into the construction process of this so that you will also be able to make your own Lucy Grey rainbow dress, because I know we all want to make this dress. So without any further ado, let's dive into part 1, the corset. Hello and welcome to part 1, the corset. So in this week's episode, I'm going to walk you through how I'm going to make the corset. Now originally I did think of using a stock standard pattern for this. I was going to go with Butterick's 4669, which as you can see is a lovely stays pattern. And it's got the shoulder strappies. You can eliminate the lace up in the front and chuck it in the back, and then it'd be really quite a similar shape to what she wears in the film. I've made this corset once before, however, and I did just that. However, I don't like the fit of it on me. I'm a bit more busty than Lucy Grey. And so, as you can see on this previous version that I made for my Sarah Sanderson costume, it sits a bit too low, which means too much cleavage is showing, and I don't really want that for Lucy. So then I was racking my brains, and suddenly this amazing TikTok popped up on my TikTok feed that was like, hey, you want to draft your own corset? Here's how you do it. I'll pop it up just here as I'm talking about it. Basically, what you do is you get Glad wrap, you wrap the corset area that you wish to recreate in Glad wrap, and then you use masking tape to put over the top of the Glad wrap, and then you draw in your sewing lines and everything. Take it off, cut it out, transfer it to paper, transfer it to a mock-up fabric, give it a go, see how it fits. So I'm going to go with that method. I've never done it before, but we'll see how it goes. It shouldn't be too difficult, and I feel like it'd give a really good fit. I don't know. So come along on this journey with me now as I attempt to make a corset using Glad wrap and masking tape. Right, the first step was to change into a shirt that I didn't mind accidentally cutting. Like, I still mind accidentally cutting this one because it's so cute, but I recently just donated all of my old feral shirts, so it is what it is. Glad wrap. Let's proceed to try and wrap myself up. This would probably be a lot easier to do if you had somebody here to help you, but like, it's just me. It's just me home, and I can't be bothered waiting until anybody else gets here, so let's do it! Alright, Glad wrap layer done. Happy with how the front looks and the back. Only issue is these shoulder bits just here, but I should be able to draw those in myself. So now I'm going to get to masking tape. Let's go. Okay, masking tape is on, so what I've got to do now is draw the style lines of the corset on, and then we should be good. I know the back's a little low, but that's just because I couldn't reach it myself, but I'm pretty confident I'll be able to fix that up when I'm drafting it, so tracing it over to the pattern paper. It'll be fine. We won't worry about that. Okay, so I have attempted to draw the style lines on as best as I can, just being one person and drawing it in the mirror. I should be able to work with what I've done though, so the next step is cutting this off. Let's get this off me. And bonus, I didn't even cut my shirt. Alrighty, so here is one half of the bodice drawn out. So what I'm going to do now is cut out all these panel pieces and transfer them to paper. Alright, all of the pattern pieces have now been cut out. I haven't done the strap yet. I'm going to work that out while I'm doing the mock-up. Speaking of, it is now time to sew the mock-up. So that worked a lot better than I anticipated. Like, this fit is insane. And I know I'm just holding it together in the back right now, but I can tell that this is pretty much perfect. So all I've got left to do on this mock-up is add the shoulder straps. But I'm going to do that on my mannequin, and then I'm on to cutting the actual fabric already. That's insane. Alrighty, for real fabric I have some duck cotton in this lovely purple shade, and some leftover taffeta from my Rapunzel costume I made earlier in the year. And as with any project, the first thing you do is cut out all of the pieces. Once all of the pattern pieces have been cut out of both of the fabrics, it's time to lay them one on top of each other and then baste them together using a long sewing stitch on my machine. After the basting's done, it's time to sew the pattern pieces together. Next, I prep all the seams for boning channels by ironing them flat. Next, I cut all of the boning channels from a cotton twill tape. Then I pin all of the channels in place to the inside of the bodice before sewing them in place. Now onto the bones themselves, so I'm using a spiral steel boning, which I cut to length of each of the individual channels. Then using 2 sets of pliers, I crimp the covers to the ends of the bones. As you can see, under part of the corset is now all sewn together, and I am so happy with how this is turning out. I think for the leather panel all I'm going to do is cut out the same pattern pieces but out of the leather. Just cut them a fraction smaller and then top stitch them in place. Let's cut some leather. Hello, it is the next day and I have procrastinated long enough on how I am going to do the leather bit. So what I've come up with is I'm just going to trace the pattern pieces that I made yesterday onto my leather sheet and cut them out exactly as is, but where the seam lines are, I'm going to cut them about 5mm inside the pattern piece. So that should give us the nice little gap that she has on the seams. Should work. I hope it does. I've only got one shot, one opportunity. So let's do it. Okay. I am absolutely sick of hand cranking my machine. I'm sick of that. My arms hurt. It's a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. So I'm going to take a break and attempt to paint the corset pieces now, because I just need something else to do. So for the painting, I just used acrylic paint and some sponges and just sponge the paint straight onto the leather. If you do this in thin enough coats, I find that it actually doesn't crack. Look, sometimes you have the whole weekend to sit on something and just step back from it and go, do I actually like how this is turning out? And then you wake up Monday morning and you look at it and you go, no I do not. I'm really not happy with the shape that this corset is giving. I thought maybe if I just kept working on it and got it to the point where I could actually lace it up and, you know, wear it, that might change the shape of it, but I can't bring myself to keep working on it. It's just too lumpy and it's not up to my own personal standards of making something, so I'm gonna scrap it. It's just not worth it to me to keep working on it right now. So what I'm looking at doing instead is, I came across this cosplayer on Pattern Review who'd also made the costume. Her name is Leia Aurora. She does awesome costumes like Star Wars and Lucy Gray, you know, pretty much the same stuff I do, so if you like what I do, you should probably check her out too. There's just happenstance that I came across her review of her Lucy Gray pattern that she used. She used a Butterick pattern as the base, and I think I'm going to do the exact same thing. I think I'm going to go down to Spotlight now, grab the pattern, get some more fabric, and start this corset again from scratch. Because, yeah, just not happy with this. It's a bummer, but it is what it is, and I hope that this next version will be even better. On the bright side though, I did discover that leather needles exist on the weekend, so that's going to make sewing the leather to the front a lot easier, I hope. Let's get stuck into V2 of the corset. So I'm using the exact same fabrics for my failed version, the duck cotton and the Rapunzel leftovers, but I'm lining it with this really cool floral cotton. Now, to preserve the pattern pieces, I'm actually going to be tracing them out using the Simplicity carbon paper. And all you do is layer it between a layer of paper and your pattern, and then you just lightly draw over the pattern shapes and it transfers all of your notches and markings onto the paper below. And here are the newly drawn out pattern pieces, so now cut it out of the fabric. And just like the previous failed version, we start off by basting the fashion fabric to the duck cotton. Once all the pieces were basted, it was time to sew them together. And repeat with the lining, of course. Next we lay the lining and the basted fabrics together, and we begin sewing in all those marked boning channels you can see on the front. I'm using plastic boning for this version because I didn't have 12 meters of spiral steel boning laying around, but I did have plastic. After sewing the boning channels one by one, it's then time to cut some boning to length. So I just did this using a pair of scissors, and after that was done, I then used the fire from this Oasis Scents candle to round off the edges so that it doesn't stab through any of the fabric. Then just rinse and repeat until all of the boning channels are filled, and ta-da, you have a fully boned corset. And once again, just like the failed corset, I'm going to cut out the panels of leather, slightly smaller than the panels of the actual pattern, and then just top stitch them on place, but this time using my leather needle so that my sewing machine can actually sew it all by itself. Base coat is now done on all of the panels. I did it exactly the same way that I did the original first corset that I made. Just waiting for it to dry, and then I'm going to draw in the design on the front and start painting that. Very exciting times. Alright, here's how it's looking after several hours of painting at this point. I've still got the 2 bits to do on the side here, but I will come back to you with a cool transition and it should be done. So that took me a very long time, but I mean, look how cool it looks. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim back this edge here and this part of the strap, and once I've done that, bias tape time. To begin the bias tape, I cut out strips of the Rapunzel leftover fabric on the bias, and they were 5 centimeters wide. I did this until I felt in my heart that I had enough noodles to make enough tape to go around the outer edges of the corset. Then I sewed each of the strips together to make one long continuous strip. Then using my iron and this bias tape folder thingy, I just ran it through and ironed it, and look at that, it makes bias tape. I sewed the bias tape to the corset about 1 centimeter in from the edge. Bias tape successfully sewn on, so now I just need to fold it over like this and hand stitch along the other side, and it is done. And then I can look at putting the eyelets down the side. Good morning. So as you can see here, the corset's just about done. I put the eyelets in the strap bits here yesterday, and it was really hard to do because I was trying to stab it with my scissors and cut out holes because I didn't have a hole punch. But I found out this morning my dad actually does have a leather hole puncher. So all I've got left to do is to put the eyelets in the back here, and then it is done. So let's put some eyelets in. Here is where I will be doing the eyelets, so I just mark out evenly where I want those eyelets to be. Then I make the holes using a leather hole punch, and now it's eyeletting time. And there you have it. That is how I made the first part of my Lucy Gray costume, the corset. So I'm pretty happy with it overall. Obviously I had to make a couple of changes to it to fit my body shape because I'm a lot shorter in the torso than Rachel is. That's why my one's a little bit shorter and not as long. But I don't think you really notice, and yeah, I'm just really happy with how this has come out so far. Next week I will be starting on the shirt that she wears underneath and the bloomers as well, so make sure you stick around to see the next part. And remember, if you like this video, please chuck a like down below, it really helps. And if you really liked it, please consider subscribing as well. I usually do a lot of sewing, crafting and fun related content here on this channel, and I usually try and upload every weekend or so. And like I said, next week the shirt will be made. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you here next week. Goodbye!